YouTube, what's happening? All right, so it is Saturday, and oh my gosh, I had this entire day planned. It's a content day for me, and my game plan was to get up this morning at 7 o'clock, get in the gym to train legs at 8, and then get back and start content no later than around 10:30, 11, and your boy slept till about 9:30 this morning. And I was in bed last night on Friday by almost 10 o'clock last night. Actually a little earlier because I was watching a little TV, which I don't normally do when I go to bed. But I slept almost 12 fucking hours last night, and I'm not even mad about it. So the week before last, I was in Charleston for a week. Charleston, South Carolina, shout out to the 843. And I was sick about 4 of those 5 days or 6 days that I was there. Last week was just insane with the grind, with clients, building the business, just everything I was catching up on. So, you know, at the end of the day, my body needed it. So again, I'm not mad about it. And you know, even though my plans shifted, I'll still get in, you know, the things I need to do today. But my, you know, point in this, I figured what better time to kind of sit down and talk to you guys a little bit about sleep while I'm on the way to the gym. Like I said, it's noon now, so I'm like 4 hours behind schedule, but it's the weekend, it is what it is. And you know, one thing I kind of want to get across, and the reason I think, you know, talking about sleep is so important, is because sleep is such an underrated tool in your toolbox, and a lot of people don't utilize it the way that they should. And back in the day, during like the skulls and barbells era, for those who've been around that long, you know, I used to fight sleep, and now I treat sleep like the most important supplement that I can take, because it is. And I used to be a part of the whole team no sleep, you know, grind till you die, like no sleep, you know, all this bullshit. But then I started to realize that sleep is the most, again, underrated, you know, weapon you have in your arsenal. And you need to shift your mindset when it comes to sleep. And, you know, a lot of people are grind, work, train. And realistically, you know, most people treat sleep as a luxury. And like I said, I treat it more like a fucking weapon. And it's probably one of the best tools that you can have in your toolbox. Because if you think about it, like, people meal prep, people track macros, they buy all the latest supplements, they do all the things they think they need to do, but then they're up till 1 a.m. scrolling on Instagram, or, you know, playing on YouTube, or watching TV, or playing on their iPad. Like, they're so electronic focused, and then they wonder why they're not sleeping, they wonder why they're so tired the next day, and then they're trying to rely on caffeine and energy drinks and all this fucking shit that you really don't need, especially pre-workout. And that's a whole nother video, because I am not a fan of pre-workout, but we'll talk about that next time. But the way you need to look at it is no sleep equals no recovery, and no recovery equals no progress. So, you know, especially if you're 35 and over, or let's just say you're crazy active, you train super hard, you grind your ass off, like you are just nonstop go, kind of like, you know, I am, and a lot of people that I know and associate with. Sleep is insanely important to get. And if you're skipping out on sleep, you are 100% skipping out on your progress. And I firmly believe that. And this is why again, I want to harp on this so much and kind of talk about this right now while I'm on the way to the gym. Because sleep impacts everything. You guys hear me talk about hormones, which I'm going to probably talk about here in a second, but, you know, sleep is amazing. Like, when you can actually dial in your sleep, you will start to dial in your results. You'll start to dial in your progress. And it's really not that hard to do. Everybody just doesn't do the simple steps that it takes to get your sleep in a good spot. I don't know if you guys can hear that music or not. But, you know, for instance, like muscle growth, fat loss, let's say, even overall health and, hormones, like I just mentioned, all of that happens, the muscle grows, the body fat gets burned, the hormones upregulate. All of that happens outside of the gym. You're not doing yourself any service by neglecting your sleep. When you're in the gym, you're breaking down your muscles, you're tearing your muscles apart, you're ripping them down. That's what you're supposed to do, right? You're creating inflammation. Like, you want an inflammatory response when you train. Like, that makes sense. When you're out doing cardio, like, while you're running, while you're stomping on the treadmill or walking on the stairs or doing all these crazy fucking other things that people are doing for cardio, like, that's not when you're building the muscle. That's not when you're burning the fat. Like, that's part of the process that it takes to get those things moving. But when the real magic happens is when you're sleeping, when you're resting, when you're recovering, when you're taking those days off. And that is when, everything starts to kind of come together in your body. That's when the magic happens. Like, when you're sleeping, when you're resting, that is your body recharging, replenishing, getting its, energy back, getting the battery filled, which is I like to call, recharging the battery. And it's no different than, let's use your iPhone as an example. When your phone runs down to zero, what do? Like, you put it on the fucking charger. It needs to charge. And if you notice it, if you're charging it and you're working on it, like, it's not charging as fast. If you charge it and let it fucking chill, it'll charge pretty rapidly, right? That's no different than getting a lot of sleep. So when you're sleeping, you're recharging your own battery. That is when your body, like I said, replenishes, regrows. That's when hormones upregulate. Like, when your body is at rest, when your body is sleeping, that is when your system is like, all right, bet. What do we got to do? What needs to be repaired? What needs to be fixed? What injuries need attention? Like, it starts to work and it starts to build the muscle. It starts to burn the body fat. It starts to upregulate those hormones, and then energy. Let's talk about, energy. Like I mentioned, the iPhone dying, right? Well, when your body's run down, your mitochondria needs to recover. You need to reboot, and that happens overnight. So the more sleep you can get, and for me, prime example, last night, like, obviously I needed the sleep. My body was telling me, hey, bro, like, get some more sleep. And I listened to my body and I slept in and I feel fucking great right now. But, that is when everything happens. So stop neglecting your sleep. You need to realize that if you don't sleep, you're not going to recover. You're not going to grow. You're not going to get lean. You're not going to get your hormones in an optimal space that they need to be in. And that all comes with making better decisions and being better disciplined. Like, so let's just talk about, before I talk about how to get better sleep, let's talk about the signs that you will notice that you're going to need or that come up when you need more sleep. So let's just use, what's a few things we can think about right now? So if you're craving sugar or caffeine, like for instance, you're just like, man, I need caffeine. Like, I'm so tired. I got to get this pre-workout in. I got to get this energy drink. I got to stop at the 7-Eleven right here and pick up that Grape Ghost, which is fucking badass, by the way. I do periodically get those. And if you're a Halloween freak like me, not to get off topic, but I just saw that they came back out with the Witch's Brew with Lonnie. That's one of my favorites. Not a big energy drink guy, but periodically I do dabble. But if you're craving that kind of stuff, and you think that you need that, like, that's a sign that you honestly just need more sleep, right? If you're dragging through your workouts, you're getting to the gym and you're like, fuck, I really don't want to be here. I don't want to train. Like, I don't have the go-go juice to do this. Like, you probably need some more sleep. If you're struggling to focus, need a little bit more sleep. If you start to get moody or reactive where you normally wouldn't be, like, probably need some more sleep. If you're getting sick often, like I mentioned, I was sick 2 weeks ago when I went to Charleston, and I even saw it in my Whoop. My recovery was, I am embarrassed to admit this, but for 3 days, my recovery was at 2 and 3%. Like, I knew it was coming, and that's because I overworked myself the week before doing content and doing a bunch of other things, traveling and yada yada, and I end up getting sick, right? I didn't have enough sleep. I wasn't running at full capacity. I didn't have a full battery. So That is why I ended up getting sick. And that's because I needed more sleep. Sleep is the ultimate fucking tool when it comes to doing anything in this space. So how do we fix that? And this is where a lot of people, in my opinion, fail, right? You know, if you can get these things right on how to fix your sleep, you're going to see you're going to see, honestly, an exponential difference in your recovery, in your muscle growth, in your fat loss journey, in your hormone upregulation journey. The number one thing I try to tell people is you got to fix your circadian rhythm. So what you want to do is you want to go to bed at the same time every night, set a hard stop time is what I like to call it. Let's say, you know, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever the case is. Right? And then pick a hard start time in the morning when you're going to get up. And when you do get up and your alarm goes off or your Whoop vibrates or whatever you use to wake, like, don't hit the snooze. Just get the fuck up. Like, period. Like, be disciplined. Like, if you're going to create a plan, fucking stick to it. Use blue light glasses around maybe 60 minutes or so, an hour or so before you go to bed, right? At that point, you also want to start shutting down electronics. You want to get off your iPad, get off your iPhone, get off the TV, pick up a book, read, do a puzzle. I like to do puzzles. You know, do something that's not really engaging your, you know, your brain and your eyes to the point where you're just stuck on a fucking screen. All that is going to do is just keep you wired, and you are not going to be able to sleep. You know, I say, you know, try to stop eating around, you know, maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours before you go to bed, right? You know, you don't want to be just pounding a shit ton of food where all the blood's running to your stomach and then you're so full you can't sleep. A lot of people, you know, do that because they're trying to cram all their meals in. I'm the type of coach, if you work with me, I tell my clients all the time, if you have, you know, you're winding down at the end of the night and you still have another meal to go and you're like, fuck, I got to stay up another 2 hours to hit my window. Nope, fuck that. You need to just omit the meal, go to bed, get your sleep, choose sleep over your meals at that point, right? Another big thing I'm big on is no caffeine about, you know, 10 hours before you go to bed. So if you're shutting yourself down at, you know, easy example, 10 p.m., cool, no caffeine after 12. You're shutting down at 8 p.m., no caffeine after, you know, 10 a.m., right? Get your caffeine in early, obviously after you hydrate, but start getting, you know, away from these energy drinks before you go to the gym at 5 p.m. or, you know, coffee before you go to the gym at 5 p.m. Like, stop doing that. The pre-workouts, you know, before you go to the gym, like, stop doing all that shit, especially if you train later in the evenings. If you have a hard time kind of winding down and sleeping, maybe you want to jump on a little bit of melatonin. I'm not a big melatonin guy because when I do melatonin, I sleep for 2 or 3 hours and I'm wide the fuck awake. Some people have that same reaction with magnesium, but magnesium is another easy supplement to use if you need some help with sleep. Obviously, there's GABA and a bunch of other things that you can do if you want to be a little bit more aggressive. Sleep teas are good if you want to wind down with like a sleep, you know, like a sleep tea in a book and while you're doing a puzzle or whatever, like I mentioned. You know, when you get up first thing in the morning, like, get outside, get some vitamin D, get some sunlight. If you wake up too early before the sun gets up, like, start using some type of, you know, light that you can get your body acclimated to, knowing that, like, hey, it's time to kind of rise and shine and get started for the day. Like, these are all things that you can start doing. But when you start resetting your circadian rhythm, that is, oh my gosh, it is amazing how you feel. And it feels good to feel good, right? So treat your sleep like a training session. Make it a non-negotiable. You know how everybody has these fucking wild pre-workout rituals? Have a fucking wild nighttime ritual. Like, have proper sleep hygiene. That is huge when it comes to getting yourself in a good spot for sleep. You know, I can't really harp on sleep enough. And if I keep talking, I'm just going to kind of ramble. And at any point, you know, if you feel like maybe, you know, you need help with figuring out a sleep routine, or, you know, you need a little bit more guidance, or you need help in trying to figure out how you can fit this in with your schedule, you know, I'll put a link down below in the description, and you know, you can book a call with me. We can kind of talk about that and see if we can get you kind of set up with better sleep hygiene. But you know, guys, at the end of the day, you know, like I mentioned, sleep is just one of the ultimate tools to have in your toolbox, and people don't prioritize it enough. And this falls in the category that I like to talk about, calling it going beyond the paper. You know, you have a training program, you have a nutrition program, like you have a supplement list. Like, those are great, but if you follow those to 100%, like everybody should, and everybody should be sticking to the plan this weekend, you still might not get the results you desire. Why? Because some of the things that are not on paper, like your sleep hygiene, your stress management, like all these other things that we can talk about, if they're not dialed in, your progress won't be dialed in. So, you know, do the non-sexy shit. Work on your sleep hygiene. Get better sleep. You are going to feel so much fucking better when you start really prioritizing your sleep. I am telling you. You know, and listen to your body like I did this morning. Like I got up at 7 and I was like, you know what? Like I'm really not feeling this right now. It's Saturday. I'm gonna sleep in a little bit. You know, I'm not doing shit tonight. I got content to film all day. I got the gym. Those are my only 2 things I'm trying to do. So I'll use, you know, the time that I have to get it done. But now that I got proper sleep, I have the energy, the focus, the drive to get all this shit done and enjoy it while I'm doing it. And I'm not dragging ass trying to run around looking for these fucking energy drinks and caffeines and all these, you know, other fake energy that everybody likes to throw in, thinking that like, oh, if I just get a little energy drink in, I get a little coffee in, like I'm gonna be good. Well, you're not. So, you know, at the end of the day, don't be that person that has the perfect macros and garbage sleep. Fix the real problem. I'm heading to the gym and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya!